What's up, everyone? Welcome back. My name is Tony, aka Son of the Bat, and you are watching the Hall of Justice.
It's clobbering time! That could blow up the...
Welcome back, guys. As always, I'm recording from San Diego Comics, one of the oldest comic shops in San Diego with one of the largest inventories of back issues. And I'm happy to announce that today's episode we are actually sponsored by Greg Horn. So if you go to greghornart.com, you can get 10% off your entire purchase by entering promo code TSFPOD at checkout. Again, that's greghornart.com. As always, we're going to start off this week with Independence. And the first book we're looking at is by Dark Horse Comics, Bedtime Games. Now, this is written by Nick Keller, and the artwork inside is done by Connor Nolan. And this is the first issue. And it's basically, the only way I can put it really is Stranger Things mixed in with It. You do have a group of friends who are talking about their history, talking about their past, and you get a little bit of insight into some of the dark and gruesome things that they've had to deal with growing up. Some things that a lot of kids shouldn't deal with when they're being raised. And while they're doing that, they're also finding out that there's a key that their school has been hiding for this lock under this bridge that they're going to go explore. And like any good horror genre, you do have these teenagers go into this cave and come out with something that they really wish they hadn't. One of them starts having a nightmare, or believes he's having a nightmare, first thinking it's his father. But at the end of the book, we are introduced to Mr. Bedtime. So you probably want to think of him as It from the film It. It's pretty good. It's a little bit more mature than other books, so definitely keep that in mind when purchasing it. For your kids, take a look at it first to see if it's something that you would go ahead and let them read. Again, that is Bedtime Games by Dark Horse Comics. Next up for Independence by Dynamite Comics, we have Charlie's Angels #1. And for those of you who grew up reading Charlie's Angels in the 70s, this is pretty similar to that. I was not raised in the 70s, but I did watch a lot of DVDs for plenty of the seasons, and the thing that I'm familiar with are the films that came out recently. This book definitely has a 70s feel, especially since that's the timeline that this takes place in. You do get introduced to Jill, Sabrina, and Kelly, as well as Charlie and Bosley. So you have the whole team there. They're doing their thing, trying to uncover certain situations as they do as detectives. And one of their first lines of work that they have to go ahead and deal with is in assisting a nightclub. So it's pretty fun. You do see some Russian gangsters in here as well. It's a fun read. The art style is actually pretty good too. I do like it a lot. And for the cover, there are a couple variants. This is cover A, done by David Finch. And this is actually my favorite cover, to be honest. And again, that's Charlie's Angels by Dynamite Comics. Now moving over to DC, we're going to be starting off with Teen Titans Special #1. Now this is different from the Titan Special we got a couple weeks ago. A lot of people were speculating that that one was going to have the first appearance of Lobo's daughter, Crush, when in actuality, this is it. The reason I say it that way is because she doesn't actually show up in this book, but you do get the first panel with her in it. But what you start off with in this story is Damian Wayne talking about how he fights crime differently than his father. And while he's enjoying an oxblood soup, which sounds kind of gross to me, but I'm pretty sure a lot of people like, in a Lebanese restaurant, some gang members come in to collect protection money. What Damian finds out is that they are actually working for Black Mask. He ends up deciding to right wrongs his own way. From there, we go directly to the new Red Arrow, who's actually fighting with her mother, Shadow. And in running into her, they seem to reconcile, but it really doesn't work out that way. And in the final story for this special, we do have Wally West going up against the Suicide Squad, or at least Harley Quinn and El Diablo. Wally seems to think that they're attacking this helpless woman, when in fact, after the original Wally West shows up, he finds out this woman was actually a murderer. At the end of this book, you find Damian trying to figure out how to put together another team of Teen Titans. It's a good read, and it also allows me to jump right into my next book, which is Flash #49. Now, we're continuing with the Flash Wars. This is part 3 of that storyline. The cool thing about this story is that it started off with Hunter Zolomon telling Wally West, the original Wally West, that his family that existed previously to the New 52 universe being created is still alive. And of course, you have Barry Allen telling Wally not to trust them. And right here you have them going up against each other, racing, basically to get Wally to stop from changing the timeline the way that Barry did. Now, one of the coolest panels in here, and I don't want to give too much away, is when Hunter Zolomon does wear the original Flash costume. And when I say original Flash costume, I mean the Silver Age Barry Allen costume, which we haven't seen in a while. If you guys haven't been reading this, I highly suggest it. It did start a few issues ago, but definitely go to your nearest comic shop and pick up some back issues because this is a really good read. Again, it's the Flash Wars, and this is part 3. Next up, and moving over to Marvel, we have a few number 1s that came out this week. And to start off, by Jeff Lemire, we have Sentry number 1. Now, this book starts off kind of like a Silver Age issue of any comic book that had Superman, where he had a larger family, or super family if you will. And what I mean by that is that you see his whole super team right there fighting against the Void. The Void, of course, is the evil side to the Sentry, and one cannot exist without the other. But what we find out in this book is the fact that Doctor Strange has created a device for the Sentry to allow him to live on Earth without actually becoming the Sentry or the Void, creating an imaginary universe in which he can be both. But of course, things don't go as planned, and the device gets stolen. Again, it's on its first issue right now. I thought it was pretty interesting, especially with the introduction of this imaginary universe, because the characters in that universe were actually waiting for the Sentry to return from the real world. So what I'm kind of hoping is the fact that these characters actually do exist and somehow find themselves in the real world. The next book that is also coming out this week, and as a number 1 issue, is Multiple Man number 1. Now, if you guys haven't been reading about this character or know much about him, you wouldn't have known that during the Inhumans X-Men War, there was a release of Terrigen Mist, which is what created the Inhumans and gave them their powers. Now, this mist actually killed a few mutants because it didn't affect them the same way it would affect human beings. And one of the mutants that was negatively affected was Multiple Man. But what we find out in this book is that the most recent find him in a vault. But it's not the actual Multiple Man, it's one of his dupes, or multiples that he creates. Unfortunately, Beast shares with him the information that his body is deteriorating since he is not the prime body, and he immediately steals a device to go into the future from Bishop. Without getting too into it, this book gets very wacky, very fast, and at the end you start seeing a bunch of different versions of Multiple Man, or at least of this dupe. It's a really fun read. It was really kooky to begin with, and I'm definitely going to stick with it, and I highly recommend it. Again, that's Multiple Man by Marvel. I have one more number 1 from you from Marvel, and that is Wakanda Forever with the Amazing Spider-Man. Now, we know that there was a lot of popularity with the Dora Milaje since Black Panther came out, and that's what this book is touching on. We do see Spider-Man at the beginning of the title, but there are plenty of one-shots that are coming out for this line of stories. And the book actually starts off with them finding themselves in Brooklyn, fighting against a former Dora Milaje soldier. She's wanting to get the attention of T'Challa, but she ends up getting the attention of the Dora Milaje, as well as Spider-Man himself. Spider-Man does decide to help them out in finding this former Dora Milaje, and in doing so, they actually run into Hydro Man as well. This book, like I said, I feel is coming off the popularity of the Black Panther film, and it's showing a lot of interest in the Dora Milaje, of course. The next issue to come out that is also a one-shot is going to be the Dora Milaje in Wakanda Forever with Storm from X-Men. And again, this is Wakanda Forever with Amazing Spider-Man number 1 from Marvel. Continuing with the Black Panther mythos itself, we have issue 2 of the new volume of Black Panther. Now, this most recent volume is very different from the rest of the Black Panther mythos as we know it. Reason being, it takes place mostly in space. So what you end up having is a lot of starship battles, and it feels more like Star Wars or Star Trek. But what we do find out right now is that T'Challa is actually not king of the planet Bass. The king right now is Lord Ninjadaka, who is wearing a Black Panther costume very similar to the one Killmonger used in the film. Again, that's Black Panther number 2 from Marvel Comics. Moving on to a book that I shared with you guys 2 weeks ago, we're taking a look at Oldman Logan, issue number 42. Now right off the bat, I'll just say that I do love the covers for these. Mike Dell'Otto is probably one of my favorite cover artists, and I wish he did more work in the interior for sure. This storyline continues Oldman Logan's struggle against Kraven the Hunter, where they're both fighting against each other, the hunter and the hunted, within the Savage Lands. We do get a bit of a guest appearance as well with Kazar, and Old Man Logan does find a flight off the island safely. But during his return home, which he actually doesn't have, he starts to realize that he wants to get back to the Wastelands, the timeline that he's originally from. So moving forward with Old Man Logan, I think we're going to start seeing him wanting to return to his old timeline. But with that being said, we also have the original Wolverine returning in the comic books as well. So it's going to be pretty interesting to see what they do with Old Man Logan. And again, this is Old Man Logan number 42 from Marvel. And last but not least, a lot of speculators out there have been really interested in this book, so I wanted to go ahead and share it and give you a bit of insight. That book is Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, number 32. Now the reason this has been really interesting, at least in the speculator realm, for those who collect comic books to flip them really quick, which I don't find anything wrong with, is the fact that we are getting the first introduction to the Kingpin's daughter, Princess Fisk. But just to tell you guys right off the bat, and this might be considered a spoiler, and I will put a warning at the beginning of this video as well as in the description, this isn't necessarily his daughter. This girl has been adopted, and he says it's from a former colleague of his, but he doesn't say who. So legally this girl is his daughter, but technically he never had a daughter. So for those who are speculating about the book, I know that it might be kind of 50-50 in regards to how hot this topic might be. But in regards to the story, what you have is Wilson Fisk, who right now, if you didn't know, is the mayor of New York. He enters Princess, his daughter, into Moon Girl's school, PS 20. He says he does this because he wants to go ahead and make all the schools in his district better. Now, of course, Moon Girl doesn't believe this, and while patrolling the city, finds Princess actually looking through files within her school. Now, of course, Moon Girl doesn't trust Kingpin, and so of course she's not going to trust his daughter. So again, guys, I wanted to share this with you because I know there was a lot of speculation in regards to a first appearance, which it kind of is depending on how you want to take it. That's Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, number 32. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. As always, like I said, I'm recording from San Diego Comics off El Cajon Boulevard, where new comics and trades are always 15% off, and all back issues under $25 are 25% off. And as I stated at the beginning of this episode, we are in partnership with GregHornArt.com, and if you go to his website, you can get 10% off your entire purchase by entering promo code TSFPOD at checkout. So go ahead and check out his site and find some work that you're really going to like, whether it's a comic book, posters, lithographs, you name it. And of course, if you'd like to go ahead and support us, you can go to patreon.com/tsfpod and become a patron. And one final notice for everybody, I actually am going on vacation for the next 2 weeks, so I will not have an episode next week or the week after. However, I am thinking of doing a bit of a hunt for video where I'm looking for comic books that are either key issues, first appearances, or important in the area that I'll be vacationing in. And while I'm doing that, I might go ahead and film and edit that and share that with all of you guys. Let me know if that's something you guys want to go ahead and see. Anyways, guys, I hope you have a great rest of the week, and I will catch you later.
It's clever and tough.